Well, there's a couple of points. One is the issue itself, in terms of how it affects the campaign, is not great for Mr. Poilievre. This is not Mr. Trump's hoped for discipline that the Conservatives were wanting, for him to just stop talking about trying to take over Canada. I think it's problematic for Mr. Carney in that you can't say that in conversing with the president, he was respectful of our sovereignty, and just forget to mention that he talked about us as becoming the 51st state again. Those two things don't line up. I think what Canadians, and many have voted already, but many more to go, want to know is what comes next. What comes the day, the week, the months after the election? And are we going to have a forceful and I don't want to go too far back you, but transparent head of the Canadian government, making sure that with someone as unpredictable and untrustworthy as the president of the United States is, that our side of the table has to be consistent and transparent with Canadians, because we want someone who defends our interests and not put bad things on the table, but not say that they're putting them on the table. I just think this is it's an own goal. I don't know why Mr. Carney would portray the phone call so positively and that the president was respectful of Canada. And then a few days before the election, it slips out that, oh yeah, no, he was talking about taking over the country again. Those two things do not coincide. And I'd be curious if anyone can square that circle. I can't myself.
Well, I thought it was interesting, Tony in particular, how many times he was asked about it, because in an effort to try and square that circle, he didn't really want to engage with reporters on it, which we've seen a few times before. I think Christy made a funny comment about it a few weeks ago as well. Your thoughts on whether, I mean, there's two ways to look at it, exactly as Nathan spelled it out. At the core of it, is it damaging the contradiction to Mr. Carney? But on a wider scale, is it perhaps not, because we're talking about Trump again?
Well, look, I look at it this way, for the past few weeks of this campaign, it's like the old adage, you had one job. Mark Carney had one job, which is to convince Canadians he had our own interests in mind, that he could talk to Trump, and Trump won't be the crazy president who keeps talking about the 51st state. And that did happen. He didn't tell us about it. And now he's trying to say that it doesn't really matter that much. I don't think that looks good on Mr. Carney, quite frankly.
Christy, what do you think?
Well, I mean, look what he's trying to do here. He's trying to protect Canada's interests from the most aggressive president of the United States in history. We are in this momentous election, probably the most consequential in my lifetime. And at the same time, he's trying to manage these trade negotiations in the middle of an election. And I'm not going to fault him for getting off the phone after being talked to respectfully, called prime minister and those other things, and trying not to make the president angry. We really have every interest in trying to build a relationship between these two men. Mark Carney, should he be elected prime minister, and I think he will be, is going to, he has to start from something. So just getting out there and starting to trash the American president based on what happened in a private conversation is not going to be helpful for Canada. And I can tell you, the bottom line is the ballot question is still the same. Who do you want running the country in the face of this incredibly consequential election? Do you want it to be Pierre Poilievre and all of his darkness and divisiveness, or do you want it to be Mark Carney, who's experienced, who's helped us and other countries through many crises over the years, and who's going to deal with this like a mature adult? And I think I've been on the doorsteps out here in Edmonton today, Vashi. Nobody's talking about this. They're talking about how they're worried about the future of Canada and making sure it's in the hands of the right kind of leader.
I see your colleagues both want to jump in. Their facial expressions were plentiful during your comments. I guess my question would be, I understand the explanation that Christy put forward around not wanting to further aggravate, let's say, President Trump. But Mr. Carney could have simply said that today, and he chose not to. He didn't offer any explanation. He actually rebutted even the gall of the reporters to ask him multiple times about it.
Yeah, and this is where Mr. Carney's not strong, frankly, is being able to explain things sometimes that are uncomfortable for him. And he gets a bit of that prickly kind of Mark Carney that I'm sure Liberal supporters don't want to see. But to Christy's point, he's chosen the timing of this election. He is playing a dual role. We've talked about on this show, largely to Mr. Carney's advantage, during the election. He's able to be prime ministerial, but also be a candidate. That's the job. I don't doubt that it's a difficult job, but there's a simple question that was put forward. How did the phone call go? It was great. He called me prime minister. He respected Canada's sovereignty. And now we find out with a few days to go, well, actually, the president kept going on about taking us over and subsuming Canada. Those two things are not the same thing. I hope not. I hope not in Mr. Carney's mind. That is a respectful expression of sovereignty for Canada. I think the central questions do remain. I think Canadians are going to be looking for an insurance policy, frankly, because we're about to go into negotiations. The next prime minister, likely, it looks like Mr. Carney so far. Do we want to give him the carte blanche in this? He's been a little inconsistent on some of these things. Or do we need a little bit of insurance policy to make sure that what happens next, the day after and the weeks after the election, is done with the full range of Canadians' interests at heart and not anything that starts to get confusing and worrisome to Canadians at such a critical time?
That's certainly the pitch from the NDP right now, Tony. Yeah, I just wanted to also pose to you part of what Christy said, because I do take the point that Canadians are still very worried about the way in which this is navigated. And last night, those comments from President Trump reminded them that the threat still exists. Is it, in your mind, still a clear contest around what the ballot box question is, or are Conservatives concerned that it really is all about Trump?
Yeah, I mean, I can only answer that with my lived experience, having campaigned in 13 ridings now, and there's a lot of talk about cost of living and about safety in our streets and all these other issues that have been hanging around for 10 years of Liberal government. So I don't think it is clear what the actual ballot question is. Maybe it depends on each individual person, but I find myself, and I hope I don't get blackballed for this, but I find myself in radical agreement with Jagmeet Singh when he said in your clip, okay, well, given this inability to tell the truth, what does that mean if Mark Carney is the prime minister? And what is he going to give up in any eventual negotiation with the United States president? So these are legit questions for the ballot box, for sure.
You know, he's
Christy,
not a professional politician.
Yeah, go ahead.
Vashi, he's not a professional politician. He didn't qualify for his pension when he was 31, sitting in the House of Commons, doing nothing for all those years. He's someone who comes from the private sector. He comes from a public service, and so he doesn't answer every question with perfect preparation like a professional politician might. I think that's one of his great assets, frankly. And I think that's one of the reasons Canadians are looking to him, because it would be great. And I know that the NDP and the Conservatives are now weirdly working together to try and defeat Mark Carney. But I think Canadians this time are looking for someone who's maybe doesn't have all the answers already in the box.
We want the truth.
But the guy who's going to come with some experience instead.
Yeah, I don't get this denigrating. Oh, he's not a politician. He doesn't. That classically, that's when somebody is trying to spins a mistruth into a truth. Mark's problem in this exchange is he described an important conversation. We can all admit that talking to the president about this topic, really critical to be spot on. Mark is an experienced, thoughtful guy. He's done lots of negotiations. He lifts himself up that way. Well, describing how to do this well and describing it consistently, truthfully, is critical. That's not someone who's not practiced at politics. That's someone who's got to be able to lead an organization or a country in a tumultuous time and be really clear with Canadians. I think this notion of an insurance policy is not a bad one, frankly, given Mr. Carney's inexperience and given the tumultuousness that Donald Trump brings to everything that he does. Canadians are right to say, woof, maybe a little guidance on this next couple of years wouldn't be such a bad idea.
Well, I wonder if two things can be true, because I think public opinion polling does, Tony, underscore what Christy points out. People do, you look at the preferred prime minister numbers, people do like what they see right now in Mark Carney, but I don't think necessarily that excludes him being able to answer a question. And I don't think those questions were offensive today. They were pretty just direct in nature.
Straight.
I think you can do both things, and people can appreciate you for both.
Yeah, and I think that the question is still out there. You mentioned the polls. I mean, they're tightening. I don't know what all that means. All I can tell you is my experience at the door is a little bit different from what the polls are suggesting. So we'll all find out together on Monday night. But I think that the bare minimum one should expect from a prime ministerial candidate is the ability, when asked a question, to tell the truth about an important exchange of views with the President of the United States.
But he did tell the
Christy,
truth.
last word to you.
I mean, I agree. He looked frustrated when he was answering some of the questions, and he didn't like having them be repeated and repeated. That's obvious. I think we all saw that. But he did not lie about what happened in the phone call. And you know, when I look back to his initial description of the phone call, and you know, the president did talk to him as though he was talked to him about being the prime minister. They had a productive phone call, and the guy is trying to make sure that he isn't exacerbating the problems with the United States, that he's trying to solve them, and he is uniquely capable in this political environment of being the guy that can find those solutions. So you know, I don't think you can fault him for. You might be able to fault him for not being as patient as he might have been with the media today, but no. I don't think you can fault him for not delivering a full, detailed, 100% word by word readout on that phone call.
Well, that's a straw man, Christy. With all respect,
everybody wants to jump in. I promise we will have time. Yeah, I have to take a commercial break. I promise. All I would quickly add is it was only the part of sovereignty, the conveying that he respected our sovereignty privately and publicly that contradicted the report initially today. No one is saying that he lied about the rest of